What you're going to find on the bottom of your transmission, the first thing you're going to want to put in is these check balls. On different kits, and the procedures come with these kits that you buy. The particular kit we're using calls for me in the street strip mode to put 5 check balls back in this transmission. They normally come with 6. There's one other modification which only uses 2, but for our application, and that's why I say if you're buying an aftermarket valve body kit, you want to make sure to stick with the same modifications all the way through the transmission. Now I've marked them in red where we're going to put our check balls. Let me start to insert them. Now let me tell you, it's much easier to do this on the bench here. When I do it, when I'm laying on my back underneath the car, what I normally do is I'll put some petroleum jelly on the plate. Now the next thing you're going to do, you've got your 5 check balls in. Here's your servo to engage your intermediate band. Now make sure you put a little bit of automatic transmission fluid on here, and there's a spring that goes along with it. Just set it down in there, and if you push, you'll hear it engage on that intermediate band. Now what you've got is you've got a couple gaskets that we're going to be doing. Now on the corner, this one here says VB, which is valve body. The other one has got a C on it, which means to the case. Now there's 2, these are regular GM gaskets that we're using. There's 2 different types of gaskets. This particular gasket will fit from an 87 and down. You can tell because it's got the 2 yellow streaks across the gasket. From 87 and up, it's a different gasket. It has one more canal that they put in which works with the reverse. So you're not going to be worried about that. But for your application, you want to make sure you got the right gasket. Now what you do is set the gasket down in place. Now you've got, and I'm going to show you these 2 separator plates. This is the stock separator plate, and this is the aftermarket separator plate. You see, silver versus gold. We're going to be using the aftermarket plate, but we have duplicated what this manufacturer has done by enlarging or even drilling in additional holes. So if you've happened to bent up your the nice one that you bought, you can always take that one and use it as a template and put it over your stock one and duplicate it. I've seen them where they've stepped on them and damaged them, so you don't want to use a damaged or bent plate. You could actually go back to your stock one and redo it. There goes your separator plate. There's your top gasket, valve body. In other words, the next thing that goes on is your valve body. I'm going to put this on. And you can see they only go on in one direction. Now the next thing you're going to be putting on is your passing gear. Let me show you this little fella. We've got a couple different versions of it. It's nothing more than an electric solenoid, and I'll show you where it hooks. There's 2 different styles of it. This particular one has got a rubber grommet here where you don't need a gasket as long as your rubber grommet is in good shape, and you'll want to check that. The one we're going to be using is metal all the way across here. So what you do is they give you a steel gasket, and sometimes they even come through with a regular gasket material. But what we're going to do now is put our gasket down. Put the 2 bolts in to hold it. You're going to use this little canister to line up your bolt holes before you put the valve body in, but I just wanted to get it on in position there. And a lot of times what I'll do is I'll go ahead and put a little transmission fluid on here to keep it from sliding, but we'll do that in a minute. I want to talk to you about the valve body first. You've heard me refer to this as the brain, and that's exactly what it is. depending on what you do to this valve body is going to determine what your transmission is going to do. Now for our particular modification, let me kind of turn this to the side here. This plunger here, which activates your intermediate clutch, normally that comes through, and you'll see it'll be sticking up like this because underneath of it is this large spring. See this big fella here? You got to understand that the factory does its best to make these transmissions shift nice, where with me I want them to shift hard. I don't want that lagging, slow shift. So what we did is we took the spring out. Now you can see it actually goes down with no resistance at all. Also, if you've got a plastic plunger right here, don't use it. Go ahead and order from the factory the metal one. I've had trouble with these plastic ones breaking, and I bring it to your attention only because you want to make sure to start out with good pieces. Now also in the kit you're going to get a different second gear valve. And what you do is there's a pin right here. That's all you do is a pair of pliers. See the pin? Just push up on the pin and pull out your second gear assembly, and you're going to replace this stock valve with this one that comes in the kit. Those are the three items that I wanted to show you on this brain. Those are the only modifications that we're going to be doing for our application. But I'll tell you this much, the transmission that's in the car right now, there is nothing from here back. That's why it says, if you know what you're doing, and my transmission guy definitely knows what he's doing, he makes these things do exactly what he wants them to do. But that's another story on another day. Now what I'm going to do is let me get a little bit of transmission fluid here. We want to take and get this lined up, but I want to get some oil up on these gaskets so they'll stay in place. And if you have to, you can go back and reuse these. What you're looking to do is you want to torque these down between 8 and 10 feet-pounds of torque. Now let me just get a couple bolts here. And by eye, just put a couple bolts in right here. You've got to wiggle it just a little. Right there. Now what you want to do is you want to double check to make sure that you're lined up as best as you can. You're working through three pieces. Now when we put that electric solenoid there, you see that? Now I'm going to go through and just tighten it up just to hold that separator plate in position for me. You see I'm not tightening it up an awful lot, just enough to put some pressure on it. Now while we're here, here's the electric wire that you're going to hook up right on the side here. I'm going to do that so I don't forget. This would be hooked to your gas linkage, so when you depress your gas anywhere from 1/2 to 3/4 to the floor, it'll engage this canister for you. Now let me double check. We seem to be in good shape as far as the bolts. Now I'll take my 2 bolts out. Now what you've got, and I don't use them, is down in here, when you originally took the transmission apart, you're going to have a little cone which is the filter. I don't use the inside filter. I use an inline filter so I can change them without taking the valve body off and doing it that way. Now also, here's your selector here. This is what selects the gear that you're in. What you want to do is you want to make sure that when you put this down, if I can get it down just a hair. There. It's right over the tab right here. See it? When I pull that. Now let me just kind of get it lined up a little bit and get a couple bolts in here. Now here you're going to find that you've got 2 different size bolts. The majority of them, and you'll know that there's 3 small ones which only go in one location. Here, here, and here. And the reason I say that is because the larger bolts, the rest of the bolts will not go into those locations. You see how I'm wiggling the valve body? I haven't put this down. We're going to be tapping these down in a moment. I like to get all my bolts started before I apply any pressure to it, and that's what I'm doing right here. Now over here you've got a bolt with an arm on it which goes in this side here. You'll notice that it connects into your shifting lever. This will apply pressure, that positive feel that you have when you put the shifting lever in gear. This is where it comes from. This applies pressure onto that cam so you can distinctly feel it going into each gear. I'm going to draw some of these bolts down a little bit. Once you can see that all your bolts turn freely, like I'm doing right here, then you know you haven't got any cross-threaded. And you know, if I hadn't mentioned it, where we left off last week, we were putting on the rear servo. I may not have told you, but make sure that you torque these 6 bolts down to between 18 and 20 feet-pounds. I don't remember if I did or not, but I want to at least bring it to your attention because your servo has to go on before you put your valve body on, unless you've got a real small wrench to get in here to get this one bolt out. Now what we're going to do, I'm going to switch over to my little wrench here. Now, right on the back side, where your governor tubes go in, you're going to take with a hammer and just gently tap it down into place, both of them. You can see it didn't take a lot of pressure. That's all I did was hit them. You'll find that by tapping them in after you've got all your bolts in, you won't cross-thread any of the bolts that you put into this valve body here. Now we're going to go ahead and just bring them all down. And there's 8. As I indicated to you, what you want to do is torque these between 8 and 10 pounds of torque. I just went through them all, started from 5, went to 8. Now you can go 10. What I like to do when I'm first putting them together is go to 8. Because in case I have to take that valve body off tomorrow for whatever reason, I can always go back and use that same gasket and go to 10. So it may give me one additional time that I can use the gasket. Now one other modification I forgot to show you is right down here in the center there's a bypass opening that's normally there. In this kit they give you a brass plug to put in there. You see that brass plug? But as I indicated, if you're buying an aftermarket kit, they're going to give you very good instructions as to how to go about doing these different modifications. Now what you've got next is your filter. Normally what you've got is you'll be using a paper element filter and you'll see a yellow paper in here. What I use is I use either the brass or the stainless steel. Let me see which one this is. This is a brass filter. This is for racing applications. What I like to do is this here filter actually flows more or lets more fluid flow through it, opposed to a stock type of gasket. If you're going to be running on the street, your everyday transmission filter and gasket kit are fine. What I'm looking for is every little advantage that I can get. So we found, my transmission guy there, he found that there's 2 additional ones that they make. One is brass, one is stainless steel. There's just a 1 iota difference between the brass and the steel. But this one here I just want to bring to your attention is a brass one. Now, your pickup, it's got marked on there, filter and case. That side goes in the filter. Another thing I want you to do is always put 2 O-rings on your case side. I've had them where they vibrate out. You've got so much vibration on a race application that they'll actually vibrate loose. So what I always do is I use 2 of them, and I haven't had that problem in probably 5-8 years. Now what you do is put a little transmission fluid on there, push it right down into the corner of the case here. Just push it till you feel it seep down. There, we're in. This has a special bolt. It's got a shoulder on it to allow this filter to go up and down. You put your bolt in there, and I'll show you. You only got to tighten this up wrist tight. £10 is good. That's what we just got through doing the valve body at. Now you see how this floats? With the transmission level, this will float up and down. Now, this is not normally the filter and the pan that I run. This filter is of a stock nature. Let's just say it's got a 2-inch drop here. The one that I've got in my car and in my tow vehicles is about an inch larger. It gives me an extra 4-quart capacity of fluid. So the only difference between this one and the other one is the pan is much larger, and this tube that we just got through putting down into the case is also longer to extend this filter down into the bottom of the pan where it belongs. But I'm going to put this pan on just to get it in the car, and I don't put the pan gasket on at this time, because what I do is I put the transmission on the bottom of this case here. That's why I always use an old pan when I first put them together. And if you had your nice new gasket on there, by putting that 150-pound transmission on it, you're going to compress your gasket prematurely, and you don't want to do that. Wait till you've got it in the car, and then just take the, you can see I only put a few bolts in here just to hold it from falling off. But put in a couple bolts, tighten it down. When you get it in the car, just drop this old pan off and put the one on that you're going to use, and then go ahead and put your transmission fluid in. Now, right now, the only thing I've got left to put on this tranny is the tail shaft housing. Make sure you put a new seal in the back here. Now, this housing got a gasket, goes like this, and then you've got your 6 bolts. Now I find, if you hadn't noticed before, I've got holes drilled in my bench where I'll take this transmission just as it is without the tail shaft on it, and I can set it right up on my bench there and put my nice cover over the top of it, so when I need it, I know it's there. You guys may want to find that it stores a lot easier without the tail shaft housing on. What I'm going to do now is I've actually got a brick with a little piece of plywood. You don't want this aluminum up against the brick. I've got a little piece of plywood with a hole drilled in it, and I'm going to set this down on the floor, and I'll be done with this transmission until we're ready to put it in the car. What I want to get into next, I guess this is my year for having brake problem. You've heard me on a couple different programs speak of the problem that I've had with brakes. Not just the brakes, but the backing plates. I don't want to say the complete brake system, but I want to bring it to your attention again. Here it was the other day, my wife with my children in a vehicle coming down from Utica, and don't you know they lose the back brakes? What it was is we're back to that backing plate again. Now, this particular vehicle does not get abused. I can understand in my little race car. I'm definitely abused that car continually. That's why you always see me putting in the heaviest that I could find. If I can't find it, I'll make it. This was the problem with the car the other day. And what they did, and this is why I tell you, when you guys are in college and you're becoming that engineer, and you design something unique, and you know that you've heard me talk about these particular things, say that this one's for George. I really get irate over this when you want to save 10 cents and not worry about my family and my car. Now what they've done is, here's the backing plate, and you see this hole right here. They're very thin, and over a period of time it rusts out. So when it rusts out, it allows the wheel cylinder right here to chuck back and forth, and that's just what it had done. It had chucked back and forth to the point where the plungers came out and we lost the back brakes. Now, I guess that happens. You know, stuff happens. But I got to tell you something. The original one that was on the car did not have this horseshoe up on the top, which actually, it's a better design. They've gone in and redesigned it. There was no horseshoe on the top. What it was just flat across. So there's really nothing to hold this in place. Now, my problem is, this slides in here like this, and then they give you this little clip. This little clip goes over here, and I can't do it with my hands, but it goes over here. Maybe it can. Yeah, I guess it can. And it locks in place. Simple little operation to put it together. The ones that you saw in my car had 2 bolts here. The plate was thicker and it had 2 bolts in it. I'm not crazy about this situation. When it comes to brakes, I want you to be the one, when you go down to the parts counter, take a look, because I've been down there about 3 times on these brakes here. Yesterday I got the backing plates. I got one wheel cylinder, I had to wait for the other wheel cylinder to come in. The wrong cylinder came in this morning. Now, when I went down to take a look at it, the one that came in, which was for a different application, and I'm going back down after we finish this program, did have 2 bolt holes in it. I don't have the vaguest idea what it goes to, but I'm going to spend another hour or 2 back down to my local parts store and take a better look at what they got. I'm not crazy about this clip, believe me when I tell you. When it comes to safety, I don't cut any corners, and I don't care what it costs. That's why I'm telling you, sometimes you have to be your own person to look at it and say, yeah, okay, that looks like a real tough thing. Or no, maybe that's not quite what I want. Nevertheless, I'm going to bring it to your attention again. We've talked brakes 2 or 3 times on this program, and believe me when I tell you, if I have a car that's skipping, I don't care. Because it doesn't jeopardize my life or my family's life or the guy that I may run into, because I don't have the braking power. I want you to take it upon yourself to investigate, to look at them, to make sure that what you're putting in your car when you're going down the road and you apply that brake, your braking system is in good working order. If it has to, you may go into a different brand of manufacturer to get it. And that's what I'm doing now. I'm doing a little research on this. If I come up with something interesting, we've got a few more programs left, I'll bring it back to your attention. If not, I'll do a little modification on this thing myself. Now give me a minute. What I want to do is I want to move this transmission out of the way. We're done with the engine. We've got that in the car and that's up and running. We've got our spare transmission done. If you've got any questions, you've seen the number that we've put up on the screen. If you've got any questions, either call me or call one of the sponsors at the end of the program. If you get into a pinch, we'll be more than happy to answer your questions for you. But be sure that you put safety first. Please, safety.
Here's one time it doesn't matter who your neighbor is. Here's the other. Life's too short. Stop the hate.
I guess now that we're in the upholstery, we all have our favorite job, and this was one that I did about 5 years ago. This is a true tuck and roll vehicle. I don't have a picture of the before, but I'm going to go through as the programs go on, and we'll do a picture page on this particular vehicle, just to show you, to take it from the beginning and to the end, and how to do that famous tuck and roll. This is another one of my favorites. This is the before picture of a 1969 Roadrunner before we turned it from this gray that it was to this gorgeous candy apple. Now believe me when I tell you, this picture does not do this car justice. This is a gorgeous candy apple paint job, and we're going to show you how to do this on our picture page from the beginning right to the end. Now, I can't go away without showing you my little baby. This is that 59 Corvette that we've been working on. This picture was taken back in about 10 years ago, 1987, when we did a gel coat job on it. I wanted you to see the before, and then we'll show you the after. On our picture page, we'll show you how to take this car and do the same thing with the preparation of the gel coat and the painting of it. And now here's what it looked like after we got through doing all the preparation, the gel coating, the priming, and the painting. Now make sure you don't put these cars in a washing machine, because you see that little thing next to it? That's what will happen to it. It'll shrink it right down and turn it into a small car instead of a big car. Well, as you can see, we're all done now. I'm going to change my clothes because I got to get over there and get busy, because we're going to get some 50-degree temperature tomorrow. But don't forget my motto before I go: do drags, not drugs, and I'll see you at the racetrack.